Hello everyone, my name is James Rankin, as you're probably aware if you're one of my channel subscribers, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to create a mandatory profile for Windows on Windows 10 1703 Creators Update Edition. And this all started last night on Twitter. A guy called, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Pim van der Wies or something like that, who sounds like a Dutch guy, said he was having problems with the start menu being broken when he created a mandatory profile on Windows 10 Creators Update. So I, rather foolishly, as it turns out, said, well, I'm sure that I've done that successfully before. Let me have a look for you tomorrow, and I'll see if I can, pinpoint where your issue is. So I've spent about 12 hours on this today. That's the last time I ever agreed to anything. But I actually did want to go back and have a look at mandatory profiles, because somebody put a comment on my previous article about creating mandatory profiles in Windows 10 saying that when they'd created the mandatory profile, all of their universal Windows platform apps were broken. So in 1703 there is now a kind of officially documented way from Microsoft to do this. So what you need to do, if you can see here, is first of all start with building your Windows 10 image, or just a Windows 10 image, on the 1703 Creators Update till you reach this screen here that's had a bit of a revamp. And at this precise point you need to enter audit mode, which you do by pressing Control, Shift and F3, which should then do this, as you can see. Now it doesn't matter if you've already got Windows 10 deployed in production. The idea is you just build one machine from which you then create the mandatory profile. So this is why we need to go into audit mode to do this. If you're familiar with audit mode, it's kind of it's specifically can't even get my words out. It's a mode as part of the sort of build preparation where you do sys prepping and creation of default profiles, custom default profiles and things like that. So that's what we're entering into now, and what we're going to do is make the changes to that base default profile, and we're then going to use the Windows copy profile command, which, interesting, in Windows 10 1703 only runs on the default profile, which is why we have to create a custom default profile first, as you shall see. So we'll just wait for it to log on there. It logs you on as the administrator account, which incidentally is disabled as soon as you're finished with it, and that's what's used as the basis to create the default profile. So we'll just wait for this to log on here. It's very clear that the just a moment, which we have described, displayed on the screen here at the moment, is a complete lie, because in anybody's terms, Microsoft, this has been much longer than a moment. I have been pausing this. It's taken an awful long time. Okay, that's finally finished after a considerable period of time. So, first thing you'll be presented is this sysprep dialog. When you get on into audit mode, just click cancel at that. And now what you need to do is essentially, after I've answered this network question there, is customize the profile that we're logged on as in whichever way you want to customize your mandatory profile. So all I'm going to do to make it, excuse me, I'm just drank a cup of tea far too fast, to make it obvious that we've used it, that the mandatory profile is loaded when we log on, when we're testing it, is make just a few cosmetic changes to the look and feel of the desktop, which will show that the mandatory profile is being used. But this is entirely up to yourself how much you do, and a lot of things people do is set default view settings, set internet home pages, things like that. Maybe set a default background. Any settings that you want to bung into the mandatory profile for whichever way that you're using it, whether you're using it as the base for a UEM product or something like that, or you're using it for a locked down sort of kiosky kind of environment. Entirely up to you. So let's just make some quick changes. Let's put the taskbar into small mode. Let's show all the icons on the taskbar. Switch that on. What do I want to do as well? I generally just move the desktop icons around a bit so we can see at any given moment that we have logged on with a mandatory profile when we're testing it. Come on. I've been at this all day. I want it to hurry up so I can document it and go to the pub. Because it's Thursday, which is the new Friday, as I keep telling my wife. Although Friday is now the new Saturday as well, because the football season has finished. You see, I'm just completely waffling on. Finally, start to see the settings window. Come on, come on, come on. Right, let's just make some quick changes. We've not actually changed the background because that will be set by GPO. But what we will do is just whack the desktop icons over there. Put those on. And let's just move them around a bit so that we know, when we've been logged on and using the mandatory profile. Right, that should more or less do for you. I mean, what some people do at this point is actually deprovision some of the Universal Windows Platform apps, but that's not a user level thing. Really, you should do that in your image as a whole, because otherwise they will just be reprovisioned as soon as a user goes and logs on to another machine. So not much point doing that there. You should concentrate on everything like that. What you will need to do is, because we're sys prepping the machine when we're finished, I will just browse across. What you need to do is put an unattend.xml file somewhere on the machine, which contains the Windows 10 edition and also the path to the install files, and then you can reference that when you run the sysprep command afterwards. So I shall just literally grab a pre-created unattend.xml from here, and I'm just going to bung this in the C root. That's a fairly decent place to get it. And if we look at this in Notepad, just the things to look at, you need to have this flag here, this copy profile set to true, which will ensure that this profile is then that we've customized is changed into the what becomes the default user profile. And you need to have point at the source files, ours are on the D drive, and name your actual Windows 10 version there, and all the rest of the stuff should, I'll just word wrap it for you, should just match up with all of that. Obviously processor architecture as well has to be correct in there. So now, if you've done all your customizations, what you then need to do is run a command prompt or PowerShell, which is more or less what you're sort of done with now once you've done all your customizations. And then we need to run a sysprep command, which will then take this profile that we've customized, this administrator profile, and dump that into the default user profile. So let's just type in the path to sysprep. See if I can remember this off the top of my head. It is /generalize/ubi/reboot/unattend, and then a colon, and then your path to your unattend.xml file. That should do it, assuming I am remembered it correctly. Right, it's now going to go off, do all of its syspreppy stuff, and when it comes back up, it will log us on. It'll go through a bit more of the Windows 10 setup. It'll ask us to sort of configure Cortana and things like that, and then it'll log us on, and we'll be ready to do the next bit. This does take a while, so I'm going to pause this video right here, and I'm going to go and put the kids to bed. I'll be back. Okay, so after about that very long sysprep, I haven't managed to get the kids to bed yet anyway, just for an update on my personal sort of stuff there. Right, so we'll just go through the final stages of the Windows 10 build, which obviously has had a bit of a makeover in the 1703 Creators Update, and it's supposed to be all super duper user friendly. Obviously, if you're using SCCM or something, you probably generally won't say anything like this, but just for the purposes of creating this mandatory profile, we have to step through these bits. Okay, we'll just skip past this. Sign in with a Microsoft account because obviously we wanted to join a domain. Let's just, and I mean this PC that we're building here with Windows 10, literally for the purposes of creating, oops, can't even get my password right, a mandatory profile we can literally just throw this away when we finished it. It's a completely throwaway machine. We just need it for that initial creation. Then we copy it across to a network share. Oops, sorry, I dropped my wallet on the floor, and that's that. It's done. So there's no need to even maintain this machine going forward. So you can pretty much skip through all of this stuff and just give it the most basic set of settings that you need. So we obviously don't want Cortana in that vein as our personal assistant, because she's nothing but a pain in the backside. Let's turn all this crap off. This is literally me just doing it out of habit. As I said, you're not going to be using this particular image for anything. And now it's going to go and log us on as the admin, and then we can basically apply all of the latest patches and join the domain. And that is what I'll do now. And rather than have you sit through this bit, at this point, as I said, what you want to do is apply all the latest patches, join your machine to the domain, and then log in as a user, and we can do the copy profile from there. So I shall now pause my video again, and we'll pick that up when I've done that bit. Okay, so we have now fully patched this machine, because obviously when we go into audit mode, it wasn't fully patched. We have set my network connection properly, and we have joined the domain. So when we log on now, this time with a domain account, what we will see is because we created a custom default user profile, those changes that we made should. Sorry, I got distracted there by somebody sending me a WhatsApp message. The changes that we made in that profile that we had when we logged on in audit mode should be reflected into this user when we log on, and then we will actually take the default user profile and copy that out to a network share. So as you can see, we've logged in and we have the small icons on the taskbar. We have our icons across here. A Google Chrome icon has appeared because we've now joined the domain, and that is an AppV delivered version of Google Chrome that's assigned to it via group policy. So everything is very, very good as we want it, and everything appears to be functioning correctly. We'll just check that we can launch our modern apps in a start menu. The reason the start menu looks a bit of a mess is because it's using that default profile, which we haven't sanitized in any way. What we really should have done is create a custom default layouts.xml, but again, this is not a machine that we're going to be putting out in production. We are simply going to take that custom default user profile and copy it across somewhere. So I shall show you how to do this just now. What you need to do is go into the advanced system properties, which I've just shortcutted into there, and go into the advanced tab and click on settings. Now what we should see just for the default profile, you see all these other users don't have the copy to command available, but the default profile does, which is excellent good news for us. Right, first of all, I'm going to hop over to my domain controller and make sure that I've got an empty folder to pop it in, because that's the one that I was testing on previously. So I'm going to clear that out. So we are going to use this folder here called mandatory.v6, and it's stored in a file share on my domain controller. So what you need to do now is put in the path to the folder where you want to copy the profile into. So mandatory.v6. Now what you also need to do is change this thing that says permitted to use, and in there if you put in authenticated users, which will make some changes to the file system permissions, but won't actually be sufficient. We'll have to. Now there is this new box in 1703 that says mandatory profile, which I thought, wow, is it actually going to take the ntUser.dat file and rename it to .man, ready to be used as a mandatory profile? The answer to that is no. I have no idea what that tick box does, but I'm going to tick it anyway. That's how mad I am. Right, it says mandatory.v6 already exists. Current contents of this directory or file will be deleted. Yep, that's fine with us because we've just emptied it ourselves. So off it goes, and if we finish, as that finishes, if we flip over to the domain controller and have a look in there, all the stuff from the profile is in there. Now, interestingly, if you got the app data folder, it's only copied the roaming folder, but that doesn't matter because it is just a mandatory profile. It is just to be used as a template or for lockdown kiosk modes, so we don't need to worry about having all the other stuff bunged in there. Right, so that is it for what we need to do on this side. So I'll just sign out of that machine, and now we'll jump back across to the domain controller, and we've got to do a few little tweaks on here to get this working. The original problem we had was that the start menu didn't work at all when you logged in with this mandatory profile. A second problem we found was that none of your UWP apps would launch in the mandatory profile. So I'll show you how to get on this. But first, the first thing you need to do is to go into the properties of your folder. And what we need to do is we need to make some modifications to the permissions on the file system. Right, so you see it's added in authenticated users as read as part of that, but that is not enough. What we also need to do is add in a group that you will only find on the local machine, so you need to change that across there, called all application packages. If you just type in all app and check the names, you'll find that there. Now you need to give this group full control of everything on there. You also need to make sure system has full control as well. So if I OK that, and then if I go into advanced and make sure that all of the child folders underneath there inherit the permissions from that as well. So that should now be done. And if I go back there again, another thing that if you've ever done a mandatory profile before, you have to make sure that the administrators group is the owner of the mandatory profile. You've got to be very careful of that as well. Otherwise it will fail to load. So let's just put administrators in there and put in there replace owner on subcontainers and objects and OK on that as well. Right, now what we need to do as well is we need to change the permissions on the registry file, which is this enter_user.dat file. Yeah. So on here I will run regedit, and if you highlight HK users and go to file, load hive, and then if you browse to the folder, which I'm already in because I've been doing this all day long, select the enter_user.dat file, give it a name, anything you want. Right, and there it is there. That's that HK current user hive from there. Right. Now, first thing that we want to do in here is check the permissions on here. Now, you will say that it hasn't even put that authenticated users group in here. So the permissions in here are all wrong. So we need to add authenticated users in there as well to give them full control. Some people might want to just leave that as read, but also we need that all application packages in there as well. It's very important that that also gets full control. So if we apply that, go into advanced and do the same thing, replace auto. Now when you click OK here, there are some keys in the registry that you can't get in for whatever reason, so you should see an error of some sort. There it is there. Registry edit could not set security or some of its subkeys. Don't worry about that. OK on that. Now, what I also like to do at this point is I go in and add a key that just tells me that this is a mandatory profile. So if there's any problems, I can go and load the users, look in HK current user, see if that's loaded, and I'll know if the mandatory profile loaded correctly. What I also tend to do as well is just stick a little text file in here called mandatory E6. Again, I can look in the user profile directory and see if the file system is loaded as well. Now the next thing to do within the registry is to do a find and search for the name of the account that you used to create it with, which is administrator in this case, and then quite simply delete all the references that you find in there to that. So let's delete that, let's delete that, and that, and so on and so forth. Just get rid of all the references to the administrator account. Delete and delete. Wow, lots of them in here. Just get rid of the lot, wax the lot, take them all out. There will be quite a few actually. I'm sure any of you have created mandatory profiles before. You'll be very familiar with this sort of thing. that's the lot. This next one is found actually in one of those hives within the registry, not within the one that we've loaded here, called mandatory. Right. Now, very important also, when you've done all of that sanitization, highlight the root of the key of the hive and unload it to make sure it's loaded out of memory, otherwise you won't be able to use it, which would be a bit of a disaster. So next thing I need to do is, you can actually just go in and get these ntUser.dat.log and BLF files. They're literally just transaction log files. You can delete all of those, no problemo at all. And also what we need to do is rename ntUser.dat to ntUser.man. Anybody who's done it before will obviously be very familiar with that part. Right, now the final thing that I need to do is grab myself a test user and make sure that I've got the profile set. Now if you see in here, it points to a folder called mandatory. Obviously the folder is called mandatory.v6, but that .v whatever is appended by the operating system. So this is what you need in there. You don't put the v6 in there. That will be appended by the operating system. I've put it on RDS profile and the standard profile tab as well. So now that user is primed to be used for a mandatory profile. Now, before we test this, there's one final thing you need to do. There is a group policy object which I've created already. See here, and it is under admin templates, Windows components, app package deployment. So computer config 1, allow deployment operations in special profiles must be enabled, or none of your UWP apps will work. So I'll just link that up there now. This is the machine we worked on. I'll literally just quickly restart it so that it can pick up that GPO change, and then we will be ready to give it a test, and it had better work first time, because I've spent so long today on this. I probably may strangle someone if it doesn't work. Oh dear, I hate this. I hate IT. So this is it. This is the moment of truth. Oh, I'm so unconfident right now that this is not going to throw an error. Oh, I don't know whether to pause the video and just check to see if it works before I do it. Oh, I'm just going for it. I'm just going for it. It was JRankin that we used, wasn't it? Let's go for it. Oh, here goes nothing. I've done it now. Right, what you will notice is that because we really haven't optimized the device itself in any way for a fast logon, it may be a bit of a slow logon. All we are trying to demonstrate here is that you can put a mandatory profile together and it will work when you're logged on. Now, with regards to bringing down the logon time of this mandatory profile for the first time, particularly, you would have to remove most of the modern apps. Most of the time that is taken up when the profile logs on for the first time is by the Windows UWP store apps provisioning themselves in the background. Oops, I've got an email coming in. So, as I've done a lot of articles over, remove all of those that you don't need, and the actual first logon time will come down quite drastically. But all we're interested in right now is if we can get logged on, and if the start menu works, and if the UWP apps will actually launch. That will indicate that we have successfully deployed a mandatory profile. So I don't know whether to give myself a drum roll or what, because I've had so many horrible false dawns today. I've literally spent the entire day during this. It was just intended to be something that maybe, might have taken an hour or so of my time to test, and then maybe a bit of troubleshooting. But as anybody who knows me can probably testify, once I kind of get my head set against a particular problem, then I just like to keep plugging away. I almost did write it off as a bug at one point, but I think I've cracked it. So if we just continue the wait with bated breath to see if it actually logs in right. Okay, right, so we have the icons there, the various things that we configured, the small icons down there, everything showing in the system tray or the notification area, whatever it's called. Does the notification area work? That's a good sign, because before the notification area was broken as well. I forgot to mention that. So I think, yes, the start menu is working. Yes, yes. The final bit, is it going to run? Because calculator is the only modern app you ever need, isn't it? Or maybe Edge as well. Is it going to work? Please work. Yes, it works. It works. Victory in man versus mandatory profile. Right, that is how you deploy a mandatory profile on Windows 10 version 17.03. The two most important things: you must add onto the registry permissions and the file system permissions this bunch of users onto your ACL. All application packages, which is only available on local machines, has to have full control over the registry and the file system that make up the mandatory profile. And the other bit as well, you must configure this group policy object set to enabled, and that will allow your UWP apps to work. So there you go. Pim, the guy on Twitter who asked me this question, has now given me a wonderful journey of not really sort of discovery, but more of utter frustration. But there you go. You can get it to work on 17.03. There's just a couple of bits needs to be changed. And this time I've managed to do it in under half an hour, because I'm pretty aware my last mandatory profiles video I did, I rambled on for absolutely ages. So there you go. It's now much too late to go to the pub, but that's how you deploy mandatory profiles on Windows 10 version 17.03. Enjoy.